Welcome. So in this video, we're going to be talking about reading fiction and just looking for some key plot terms. So we'll be looking to find a whole bunch of them: protagonist, antagonist, looking at characters that are static or dynamic, flat characters, round characters, looking at the exposition, the denouement or denouement, rising action, resolution, conflict. Check out the setting, turning points, climax, and falling action. So let's go through and we'll see some examples. So your exposition, this is the beginning of the story. It sets the tone, presents the characters, and gives the facts that are needed in the background. So you meet some main characters and you see the setting. To further define this, the setting is the time and the place of the story. A good setting is chosen strategically. It'll have a major impact on the tone, the mood, and the plot of a story. So your protagonist or antagonist, an oversimplification of the word protagonist, just the main character. Then the antagonist is the character or force that opposes the protagonist. The antagonist doesn't have to be one person. So when we read The Running Dream or Peak, neither story had a real bad guy, such as Voldemort, but it was, it could be depression or it could be nature. So if you ask yourself, what force was Jessica facing? She was, trying to get over her own sense of depression. What was Peak overcoming? He was trying to get over the obligations of family and things like that. So your antagonist is really just trying to keep the protagonist from reaching their goal. The protagonist must overcome their goal. So a couple other characters to look for is static versus dynamic. So basically a static character is one that just stays the same. This diorama points out that oftentimes, like a superhero is just good all of the time and they don't change, where a dynamic character is a character that changes over the course of the story. Flat characters, one that's just two-dimensional, they are just one thing. They're always good, they're always bad, they're always happy, they're always evil. But a round character is a character who just is much more complicated. Like most people in real life aren't all one thing. That would be called a well-rounded character. So in this, they give an example. Tiny Tim is a flat character. He's just sort of who he is. There's not much to him. We don't really know his background. We just know that he was crippled and he's, a sympathetic voice. Conflict, this we'll talk more about. It is the most important element of fiction. You'll see everything is tied to conflict. It creates the plot. The conflicts that are encountered typically fall into one of four categories: man versus man versus nature, man versus society, or man versus self. It is important. A mistake I see students make all the time is thinking that conflict is a single event. So for instance, The Running Dream, I would say, what's the conflict? And people would say the conflict is that Jessica lost her leg. So no, that's just an event. The conflict has to be the problem that the protagonist is facing. So losing the leg was tricky. So what was the problem then? It was overcoming the depression and the challenges that came with the leg. So notice those are slightly different, and they take some work to figure out. So then the rising action, so you start with the exposition, and then you introduce the conflict. The rising action are the pieces or the events of the story that intensify, that build the conflict. And they sort of make their way up to the climax. Often the thing that introduces the conflict is a thing called a turning point. So oftentimes you might have a story where the setting is there and then all of a sudden the whole world changes. So for example, in Harry Potter, he's just a kid who's living under the stairs. Then one day he finds out he's a wizard. Once he finds out that he's a wizard, that changes everything about the story, and he goes on, and then his conflicts sort of begin. The resolution is when and how the conflict gets resolved. Think of solution. The climax. So here's the deal. You want to think about, you're building up the conflict. There is usually a moment when your protagonist is sort of teetering on the edge. Will they fail or will they succeed? So in Harry Potter, this is, the fight against Voldemort. And Rocky, this is that final match. It's usually the most intense. It's usually the most dramatic, but those are sometimes points of preference. So really think of it. What's the moment where your character is going to win or they're going to lose? So denouement or denouement, that's just what happens after the story, right? So in Harry Potter, when they're 40, or in The Little Mermaid, after the conflict is resolved and she beats that weird octopus woman. So this is just the happily ever after, the what happened next. This is a useful plot metaphor to look at. It is a way to help you plan your writing, and as a reader, it can help you kind of chart where you are in the story. Hope that helps. Have a great day.